Namaskaram and pranams to the philosophy family. Pramodji, you have nothing to say?
No, sir. I shall listen to you.
Okay. We were supposed to have two speakers today. One who makes the Western perspective, and I don't know why my brother Pramodji felt that I can give a Indian perspective. That too on a very probably one of the most difficult subject like war, crisis, and ethics. But once somebody called for a war, like giving a lecture in philosophy family, I thought I should not run away because I am basically a Kshatriya. So when somebody asks for waging a war, it is not nice on my part to say no. My brother Kailash Chandra given a beautiful intro. I am sure the observations generally made by my brother Narayan Rao is wonderful. Is it that our speaker is not available? So nice that we have a new tradition in the philosophy family. Instead of putting two speakers, one speaker, and then I don't think that this has to be a lecture. It needs to be more like a dialogue. Because I am not a very special person to speak on war. Though strategically I was part of government of India, worked with all the defense services, had some contribution towards that, but never been part of any strategy on war. Whenever somebody, a common person, look at war, a reader who is a student on politics or philosophy, the one book, probably only one book which comes to mind is The War and Peace by Tolstoy. Though it was a Russian author, history and philosophy was beyond the boundaries of countries. It has gone all through the world. By definition, probably war is the greatest conflict between any society to society can be a war. Today it is country to country. When we talked about Indian perspective, probably the world's largest, biggest, most disastrous war happened in India only, and that is Mahabharata. It has got very special connotations. Probably we will look at it. But when we talk about war, not necessarily it be between the two different countries, regions, societies, because we are not talking in the department of politics or political family. We are talking in the philosophical family. So when we talk about philosophy, war is only a conflict. It is not a combat. It's not a battle. It's not fighting. It's not a warfare. It could be a clash within each one of us. There need not be a bloodshed. There can be lot of mismatch between individual thoughts and the feelings what we have. If feeling is what is in the manas and thoughts are in the buddhi, the conflict can be the biggest war which every one of us are fighting at every moment in our life. Why am I saying this? Because in the Indian perspective, philosophically we can look at, psychologically we can look at the Mahabharata war as an internal conflict rather than a real fight on the field. When we look at the textbook which I just mentioned, War and Peace. Along with war, the antonym is the opposite is the peace. So that state of peace, or maybe the harmony, maybe the state of no fight, an agreement, the calm state, that is what everybody is aspiring to. But peace is not that simple. It is not that ease. It is not that easily available, because war is most common and peace is not that common in this world today. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know whether it's a coincidence, I am there in many of the WhatsApp groups, so knowing what is around the world, which day is special, is very simple, because we have another group in which today most of the messages were reminding what is tomorrow. Tomorrow is May 16th. May 16th is the International Day of Living Together in Peace. If I remember, that is living together in peace, May 16th. Yes. And that the United Nations International Day of Living Together in Peace is 16th May, and we are discussing about the war and the ethics on 15th May. We can speak on this topic probably like the United Nations looked at it, and what could be the outcome of the war. What was the outcome of the war? If you look at the greatest war of Mahabharata, the idea was to retain peace, dharma, for the large majority of people who are aspiring to be with dharmic. Becoming dharma is not, probably not a political dharmic, maybe not an economic, but it is internally. How can you attain the moksha? That is through dharma. That is why we have kama, artha, dharma, moksha. So if Mahabharata war is for dharma, the ultimate aim was moksha. Moksha is peace. It's a beautiful combination if you look at, because my objective of discussion today is very clear, Indian perspective. So what is Indian perspective of Bharatic perspective of Dharma Shastra is moksha, peace only. I don't know whether United Nations understand this when they celebrate the 16th May as the day of peace. There is another great day by United Nations. I don't remember which year it started, but I remember there was a resolution which talked about how the international culture and peace with non-violence, that non-violence is also no violence, that is peace. Again, silence. What is the opposite of non-violence? I mean, violence is non-violence, but for Bharatiya Shastra, non-violence is peace, that is silence. That is why our yoga starts with non-violence. Yama is non-violence. So again you can see what is the culture of peace and non-violence. How do you get into dharmic non-violence? Through the yoga. Any resolution if you take, what is happening or what could happen in the United Nations when many nations have to live together in harmony, where the proclamation is the humanity has to live together. That concept is part of Bharatiya Siddhanta. It is the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. How do people live together in full peace? Whenever there is a war, I don't think anywhere in the world war is fought for the basic requirements of roti, kapda, makan. Even an internal war inside a country has never happened. If south from India we are seeing Sri Lanka is burning, or the west, Pakistan is unstable politically. Look at what is the real reason for all this. The reason could be not the basic requirements are not met. I am sure there can be some or other process of getting into that. Otherwise, by reinstalling a political party or changing the political leaders, things won't change. So what is the conflict in each one of us, or the whole humanity as a total, as a community as a total, as a country as a total? If you look at it, there is something which is spoiling the freedom in each one of us, the prevention of that peace. The peace is Swatantrata. So the peace building strategies, how do you create people become participant of creating the decisions, either individually in a family or in a society or in a country, so that it's not me, it's my environment also is taken care of. Today we look at it, last few years, probably last 2 decades, from 2000 onwards, people, and so the United Nations generally are concerned about the prevention of exploitation of environment. And if at all there are wars which has happened, probably that is where one country is trying to exploit the natural resources, maybe exploiting the environment, and there is a armed conflict between one country to another country. Therefore, United Nations again declared the prevention of such exploitation of environment and war. I think it is somewhere in November they declared a day for not to have war. That happened in early 2000. Therefore, I don't think, if you look at what is happening in the general resolutions between countries, they decide not to have war for many different reasons. That means every time people or the country or the society keep looking for different reasons for war. May not be the war which happened some time back is what is happening today. We will always find the biggest role players in the world, like Security Council, who is supposed to look after that no such misdeeds happen in the world. They themselves are involved in war, and we can see what is happening in Ukraine. I am part of one of the group which, with a lot of Ukraine people as part of the WhatsApp group in which I am part of that. We have conducted one seminar on understanding or hearing or praying for those people who are suffering in the Ukraine. And we had seen great professors who are working in the wonderful universities are to migrate to other part of the world and then staying in the small sheds. We have few friends who joined from my session on last week for the Life Insurance Corporation, LUGI, the Life Underwriters Guild of India. There was a beautiful mention by one of the speaker, I remember. What is the guarantee that government can give you when you take an insurance? The government has to give. Now today LIC is being, the share is being distributed to public. So it's going to be a limited company. So people are worried. What is the guarantee that government is going to give in case Or do you think that we are secure enough in investing in insurance company today because it's going to be distributed into the shares? And there was a beautiful question asked by one of the speaker. What would have happened to all the insurance people who insured their property, insured their life in Ukraine? Because the insurance company itself is burnt. And who is liable to pay? And where is the liability? And who is supposed to take care of the payment? Because institution itself is burning today. Country itself is burning. Right? So war has created lot of problems, lot of sufferings. The conflict, the attack between countries and state to state, between two political systems, because of economic reasons, economic competitions, cultural reasons, religious reasons, whatever you say. It is nothing to do with the day-to-day living problems of human being. It's all probably the ego, probably the attraction of what is called power and position. The greatest people who are on the top of this power, their ego is what is creating most of the time the war. And who are the suffering people? They are all the people below them. But if you look at the Indian perspective of war, India is probably the only country with all its abilities around, in terms of power, in terms of culture, in terms of economy, in terms of trade and business. Probably we have never fought a war against any country by ourselves. We would have defended. We would have been invaded by many people. But you can see India never invaded any part of the small island of any country also we have never invaded. But we can see around India there are small islands and populations which is being disturbed by the most powerful or those who are competing for power. So, sometimes not having war or not creating any tension between the countries, and that is the biggest ethics which the Indian perspective of war. If at all, if somebody has to speak what is India's contribution, they always have looked at non-violence, because our yoga system started with the non-violence. And what exactly is required for us? India is being criticized. I remember when the Ukraine group is discussing, one of the biggest criticism or India, when I was hosting the program, the Ukraine people had a lot of complaints on Indians. They were telling you are the one among the few countries who are not even showing some, maybe individually, as a society, as people to people, there can be emotional concerns. But as a country, as a political system, as a government, India is not showing any of its partnership either with Russia or with Ukraine. Probably most of the countries were taking share of being with Ukraine, though they are not actively doing anything. Right? There are specific reasons, because India always look at a discipline which we follow. That is niyama. We have our own niyama. Our niyama takes care of not being part of any of the people either who is fighting the war or who would have helped us in not waging war with somebody else. Most of the time India did not had to fight a big war, because we could always tie up with some people to show that we are powerful. Though we are not able to directly fight a war, we could tie up with somebody else and then show that we have enough backing with us. So be careful, because we have people who are ready to support us. So that is the fear which we created. So sometimes we think that Mahabharata war also, it is not 5 Pandavas who could fight the war, but they created The Pandavas could create a great power behind them. And that was Krishna. Same strategy. Strategy looks same. Though directly they are not to be part of the war. Somebody backing you and saying I am with you is the greatest strategy which India had. So if you ask me, what is India's greatest strategy in war? We always had somebody behind us who is supporting us. Probably they will not fight a war for us, but they will drive, they will show us the path. And this is the strategy which we followed. And there are lot of lessons to be learned. India had problems as a great country with variety of things around us. But we never had a big civil war. We never had a big Cold War. We never had problems which drove ourselves to fight war. It could be society to society. Like what is happening in Sri Lanka. It is not that India did not have such problems, but we have a union government and we have a distribution of different states. So you can see the complex system which we created where people don't know whether you are supposed to fight the union government or the state government. People are also confused. You can see what happens in Pakistan. The constitution itself doesn't give a very concretized state of the power with whom it has and who can topple the other fellow. India has a very beautiful system. So it is not that we followed the West and then created a constitution. Indian constitution probably amended as many number of times as we want, included most of the spiritual values, the basic concepts, the Dharma Shastra which we had, Dharma Shastra with which India learned from the mythological concepts. All that is taken care of by creating the Constitution of India. Therefore, with variety of things around, different political situations, different religion, different culture, different languages, I don't think no country like India, in the whole world you can see that feeling of national feeling. People keep saying India is united by Britishers because it's all small states and then Britishers came under one umbrella, the British started ruling. No. I'm sure any one of you who is interested to know how it happened to the Bharatiya Sankalpa, you must look at what Kaudilya has done. When Kaudilya wanted the small rulers to become part of him, he kept saying that the head is important, but when anyone is falling, the hand will go up to support the head. So don't think that the head is more important and the hand is having no importance. Because somebody is going to get a hit on the head, who is going to protect? It's the hands. So each state is, each small rulers are every inch and every part of the body which is supposed to take care of the whole body as it is. What a beautiful statement is from Kaudilya. So the Chanakya's principle of how the state is to be ruled, how India can be united. The Chanakya Niti itself is a great Niti Shastra. Probably bit of it you can see in the whole scriptures what we have, which are used for creating the beautiful Constitution of India. Because including either in the Chanakya Niti or maybe Vidura Niti, it's all came because there need to be a political system. They're all part of political. If you ask me who is the best advisor for, or maybe the first political professor in this world, who is the first economic professor in the world, we should only say that who is the best teacher for all the administrators. Maybe after Bhishma Pitamaha, probably Kaudilya, Chanakya would have been the best teacher for all of them. As a greatest guru, a teacher, as a teacher, from the street he can pick up somebody and made himself as the greatest of the greatest king in the world. So, as a teacher, as a political leader, as a socialist, as a economic expert in this world, Chanakya Niti Shastram had a lot of contribution. If you look at it inside our, each one of us, though we have read it or we have not read it, there are few informations which would have gone inside our brain. And though people don't know or must not have read the Chanakya Niti Shastra, when I say the word Chanakya or Kaudilya, I have seen the children, young children also feel, oh, we know him. Right? So I suggested most of the people to look at the first series of Doordarshan has produced a Chanakya serial. I remember when internet was not that easily as today available. I remember when I used to go to some country like Gulf, I used my internet facility from there, downloaded the whole Chanakya, and then all my free time was supposed to be spent on listening to him 100 times, so that those days the Doordarshan has given that beautiful Hindi. If at all I have some Hindi knowledge, it would have been because I listened to him maybe hundreds and thousands of times. So I'll tell you, if you listen to them, you understand. When I was reading my law from Osmania University, I see, oh, this is what is the tort. The tort is not what is CPC or CRPC which is written down. On a given situation, how the judge gives the verdict. He has got a Niti Shastram which is not written by the concretized rules. What influences him? And you can understand most of the rulers, most of the justice, most of the verdicts what is given is not as per text written. We have got a lot of flexibility. And that flexibility is one of the greatest thing Bharatiya Shastra had. This is what is the rule is not written, because for a war there is a niti, for family there is a niti, for a community there is a niti, and everything is interpreted based on the situations. Each one of us have got, individually also if you look at it, inside the brain, for Western people there is nothing called a manas. There is only a manas for India, the Eastern philosophy. What is in the Western philosophy equivalent to manas? How do we explain it? Manas is what is the software in the body, and the brain is the hardware or the memory wherein data is stored. And when the process happens inside our brain, we call it as thinking. And if it happens instantaneously, we don't require any time because it's in the RAM. Instantaneous decision comes. It takes the input. I see that. As soon as I am seeing something, immediately I recollect, oh, this is my brother Shrikant. I don't require to process it in my brain because it's from the manas which it comes. Right? But for Western philosophy, they call it as feeling brain, because they don't have the brain itself is divided into pieces and then say this is feeling brain. But that is not at all true. Unfortunately, Indian Eastern philosophy could not make it into document and make it clear to people. So I feel so upset when I listen somebody saying there is a left brain and right brain, thinking brain, feeling brain. It's all stupid. These are all philosophies created by Western people. We have a much better system within us. What happens to most of the peoples, including spiritual seekers, including those people who understand philosophy, they have hooked themselves into the Western system and then start explaining. One of the biggest problem which people have today is either we have, that is one of the problem with Indians basically, because we have hooked up to most of the Western system. We have not deep rooted inside our spiritual system. Therefore, we are into more confusions. And that confusion creates a lot of internal war. Because Niti Shastra is not understood the way it is to be understood. Yoga is not understood the way it is to be understood. So if you ask me where is the war today, the war is inside us. It is between the brain and the manas. For Western people, inside the brain with the left brain and the right brain. If at all something is there, it's not there. So why is it coming as the whole world? If Russia is feeling insecure because of the Ukraine's relationship with other country, individually in family also we have similar system. There is an insecurity in each one of us. There is a fear in each one of us. There is a worry and the stress in each one of us. If Russia has a stress, in my brain there is a stress. If I speak something to somebody else, how is the other person going to look at it? If I get into some activity, how is my relative going to look at it? That's a worry, that's a fear, that's a war, that's an insecurity. So what is it lacking in each one of us? If you look at, I told you, no war for roti kapda makan, it's only for freedom. Similarly, if at all there is a conflict in each one of us, the basic reason is we lack freedom. Why we lack freedom? The lacking of the freedom is because we have created a bondage between many of us. Many of the people around us, the relatives, even a political system, when we join a political party, the individual freedom of reacting to a situation is lost. A Congress person like Shashi Tharoor get into most of the time in controversy because he cannot appreciate anything what Modi does. Even though there is a great potential good thing which happens, Shashi Tharoor has to fight a war internally in the political system because he cannot appreciate something done by somebody. See, that's too bad. You can look at Mahabharata war. There are many times Krishna appreciates the other party also. You can see Karna appreciated each of his brothers. They are real colleagues. There are good relationship between them. Understood? What is Indian philosophy? Appreciate your opponent also. Nothing wrong. Do you think Bhishma as a person had no love towards Arjuna? Probably in the whole world, Bhishma loved Arjuna totally. So, as an individual, maybe X person from Congress party can always love X person from Y person from other party BJP who is ruling. What is wrong? But as a political party, you don't agree with them. See, our situation is that everyone who is with the Kauravas understood that Bhishma loved Arjuna the most. There are basic reasons. The Ekalavya story is to create that, to demonstrate that, to explain that to the whole world. He loves Arjuna more than anybody else. But when you are part of a system and you have taken an oath that I will be with the government. See, DrTPS worked with the government for 20 years. What is my political affiliation? Zero. I don't like anybody. I like only the people who are part of the government. I don't like X party or Y party. But I love the government. So, when I am in government, I am supposed to be part of that Prime Minister, whichever party he belongs to. If that is not there, there is a fight between the administration and the political situations, and the government will really suffer. If at all some country is not able to do something, it is because they lack their ethics. So where did we learn this ethics from? We learned this ethics from Bhishma Pitamaha. I think I am making my point very clear. Bhishma Pitamaha is the greatest executive power. As an advisory board, his job is to advise. He doesn't take part of the ruling. He said, I don't want the power. I am only keeping advisory role. So you can look at every art, poetry, whatever happened in India as a sport, every game which we play, everything had politics inside. Everything has related to something to reach into an agreement or disagreement. And that is why you can see in Mahabharata war, the decision is based on a dice which you play. You can imagine a game is what is playing. So it says a small conflict, a small ego. That is good enough. And where is that? The whole purpose of that gameplay was not required at all. You should have rejected. No. But as an individual, when you get into fight with somebody else, whatever is the basic reason around you, the reason is not created by that one individual to one individual. There is a nature which plays a role, which says to establish dharma, this is what is to be fought. See, individual will not be able to topple the government. So what is to be done? You need a political situation to be created. So either it is personal, professional, economic, every sphere of life has to be seen together, which is rolling around different activities around the world. And what is that we as an Eastern philosophical people who look at the Western philosophy must understand? In Western philosophy, it is not the Dharmic Shastra which runs the war. The war is just for business. If you look at what is the reason for most of the wars which were fought in the West, if you look at all of them are economic reasons. And what is the biggest business with the richest people in this world? It's everything with ammunition. Everything to do with war equipments. As long as there are war equipments being produced and there is a great market for such gadgets, I don't know, most of the people might not even know. One of the biggest business in the computer scenario in the world is games. The video games. If you look at all the video games are generated and being sold for small price in the street. I remember in early 1980s, when I was in Hong Kong, I have seen on the street video games were sold in the small CD-ROM, the small disc. And understand the cost was nothing and it was on the road, you can pick up free. Do you think somebody will sell such video games free of cost? Why did they sell it? That is because all the video games in the world is created by somebody who created a war game for training the soldiers. And once you declare which is the land, that becomes a war game. If you don't declare it and show it is like a unknown place in the world with shifting of the sceneries, it becomes a normal video game. So you can see how much amount would have been spent for creating, training, virtual war. And there are some countries like China who created many places equivalent to India, many places equivalent to the neighboring countries, to train people to how to fight war in such situations in case if you have to enter in that country. It's a huge investment. Why people spend that much money for creating such a situation? You can see the bunkers, the hiding places, all these cost a lot of money. Why people anticipate such a war is going to happen and then create such things? And why people gather that number of missiles, warships, fighters and then keep? Because everybody knows who is producing all this. If you look at it, the money spent on that business is not being spent on any food processing, any of the commercial activities, any productive system in the world. So who is the reason for war? If Eastern philosophy talks about dharmic, which I was focusing in the first part of my discussion, in Western country it is only business. So if that taxpayers' money which is being spent for, you can imagine even a country like India, our education, food, agriculture, all that budget is very, very, very less and meager when compared to the defense budget. So you can imagine a country like a poor country like India. India is not a very rich country. We are not in the 5 best, though we are in the highest in the population. Right? We are not. So what is lacking? The honesty and the integrity and understanding the war within each one of us to sensitize people so that we become non-sensitive to such activities which creates trouble. And that could be the reason, or that has to be the reason for these discussions under the philosophy family. It is the authority, it is the power which attracts them, and the right intention and the right cause, the right reason for fighting war is not even understood by the real power mongers. So we need to understand the armed conflict between the states and the powerful nations are not for the Dharma Shastra like what we had in Mahabharata war. The Mahabharata war is the only war probably. I don't know how many people understood Mahabharata war in the context of a great war. The rule is whoever participated from the war, if this party is not winning, that means Kauravas were not winning. Not even a single Kaurava party who participated directly in fighting war will not be alive after the war is the rule. So there is no running away and saying I surrender so that please save me. That is not there. So you can see the last person. If you have not seen the last portion of the war, I suggest people to, at least if you have seen, if you don't remember, suggest to the young generation to look at Bharat Ek Khoj. How Mahabharata war ended. You will see how tragically Duryodhana was killed by Pandavas, because the rule of the war says that nobody should exist. Though he could have been said, okay, fine, you go and live in the forest. No. They could have been put under arrest. Maybe Gulf, what happens if there is a ruler who does something against the government, immediately they are put into house arrest. But a very high powerful person putting into house arrest is one of the biggest expensive thing in most of the Gulf countries today. Because their house has to be like a palace. Right? So Mahabharata war, you can imagine, if Pandavas don't want to kill, 100 people like Kauravas, including Bhishma Pitamaha, need to be given palaces to stay. So it's a great expense. If somebody is against Dharma, it needs to be killed. What is the philosophical meaning inside that? In each one of us, there is what is called ego. And that ego is represented by, or a unwanted desire, the kama which is not authenticated by the Dharma Shastra. That is what is represented by Duryodhana. So what is to be done? The Dharmaputra's job is to kill that. Our Dharma inside each one of us, which comes from the logical thinking, which comes from the feeling, not for myself, but for the society. That feeling should conquer and destroy the bad feelings in each one of us. That is the philosophy of the internal war as a mythology, as a story what is given to us. So the benefits of war always is to be understood. What is advantage, what is disadvantage, what is moral, what is conflict, and after the conflict how morality can be sustained, how Dharma Shastra can be sustained. And when war is to be fought is also very clearly said. Agradas chaduro veda prishtaja shasharam dhanu idam brahmam idam chatram shabadapi sharadapi. What a great sense of, that is what is exactly what is being quoted by Parashurama's principle. Agradas chaduro veda. You need sufficient advisors, dialogues, discussions, like Krishna went as a messenger. Agradas Chaduro Veda. First attempt should be for the Veda, knowledge, advices. But every god in India, every god in Bharatiya Shastra, every god in Sanatana Dharma, every god in our Vedic system always carried weapons on their back, including Krishna. And that weapon is Sudarshanam. Darshanam is philosophy. Sudarshanam is the best philosophy. And if that best philosophy of knowledge doesn't work, take the weapon. And what is to be done? Prishtaja Shasharam Dhanur. The bow and arrow is behind you. And use it. Idam Brahmam. Wherever knowledge is to be given, give knowledge, advice, and then ask them to go. If they don't take, what is to be done? Idam Chatram. Use your Kshatriya power of chopping them. Shapa Adabi. Wherever Shapa is to be given, give Shapa. Curse is to be given, curse. Curse doesn't work, what is to be done? Use the arrow. Kill them. Sharadabi. See the philosophy of war? What is the ethics? Give advice, give them chance. And not only Mahabharata war. Don't think that Mahabharata war is only the reason which we are discussing Indian philosophical, mythological concept. And another biggest war was, which was never fought in India. Mahabharata war was in Kurukshetra, which is very close to when you travel from, when I was traveling from Delhi to Hamirpur, I have to travel through Kurukshetra. It's a big war field, 60 kilometer by 60 kilometer. But there was a time when we had Ayodhya. Yuddham is not there. And that is the time when the Treta Yuga time Rama fought a war. That was also to establish Dharma Shastra. But he did not fight in India. He went to Lanka and then fought the war. Because India, that time, we don't even want the Yuddha here. Unfortunately, Dwapara Yuga came, we were ready to fight war in India. Treta Yuga, the war was between societies. When Dwapara Yuga came, the war came between the families. Cousin brothers only are fighting. And the first Yuga, the Satya Yuga, there was no war. So our Yuga concept itself will describe the war strategy which we had. Satya Yuga, no war. We are living with the nature. We are part of the nature. And nothing is there like a conflict. Because we always believe what we are doing is right. And that is in tandem with the nature. So we don't have to fight a war internally also. But when it came to Treta Yuga, the war is between two different societies, two different countries. When it came to our Krishna's time, Dwapara Yuga, it was within the families. Now in Kali Yuga, where is the war? The war is within us, within the family, within this body itself, between the head and the heart. That's why Nelson Mandela said, you cannot have two H. Head and heart cannot be good. Either head is good or heart is good. Practically you can live or emotionally you can live. Emotionally you are good, practically you are useless. When practically you are good, emotionally you will not be. So what can be done to balance this? That is spirituality. So I keep believing fivefold development, a conscious living concept is what I am propagating today. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially and spiritually, in acquaintance with all the environment which we have, which is created by Panchabhutas. When we understand that in the Satya Yuga, these Panchabhutas and out of these Panchendriyas, relationship with them, with all that Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Doshas which we have, which create these Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic thoughts in each one of us. If we can balance this, understand my role, understand my goal, understand my realities in this world, and then my value system will become normal, and that value system becomes dharmic, and I understand that I am basically a human being, and I understand that I am basically a social being. Nothing is mine, it's all given by somebody else. Whether it belongs to X, Y, Z, it doesn't matter to me. I am here to hold it for some time as a trustee, but I am not the owner for that. Once you understand this concept, I think The Eastern philosophy of the ego, the selfishness, all that will get diluted, and then a situation will come. Internal war also will not happen. I think it's good enough. Did I speak more time than that is good? I thought I will speak 1 hour. Good enough. 7:30 now.
Yes, sir, yes.
Kailash ji, good enough?
Yes, sir. We got to listen more and more from you.
Yeah, I think we should open it up to people to react, comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Guruji, Dr. DrTPS, for your very inspiring and thought-provoking space on war crisis, ethics, Indian perspective. Very briefly, you have given the conceptual clarification of war and peace, and in Indian perspective. Initially, this statement that you have given that every one of us are fighting at every moment, and you added the concept, the statement, living together in peace is the motto of the union of our systems made. That is new information for all of us. And you have given, I don't want to speak more, that is you have given the Indian Purusharthas, like Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha, which covers the Indian values. You have covered Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything. And in Bhagavad Gita, you have said that non-violence, it calls non-violence the peace for which we have to culture the act of non-violence in every one of us. And you have given the concept Vasudhaiva Kutukutam as the concept, the motto of Indian people, Indian perspective. Regarding the region of war, you have said that ego is creating war. So sometimes small ego creates a great war. And from Indian perspective, it is very clear that India does not want to be part of war from its own side. It believes in the spiritual values. And you have very clearly given that there is a national feeling in India. That is Bharatiya Sankalpa. And you have mentioned the Kautilya's Niti Shastra, the Chanakya's Niti Shastra, everything, which have a lot of flexibility. And you have given how different rules are there for different situations. You have mentioned Bhishma Pitamaha as the greatest teacher of morality, and you have given the Western act of the war and Eastern concept of war. Many people, I don't want to go on all the things, and at last you have given mentioned different forms of war in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. At last you have ended that how understanding the war, how understanding the concept makes us clear not to go through the war, and understanding the concepts gives us a clarity to understand what war is and not to do war with anybody. And it is a very national feeling. It is a good feeling within us. So now I don't want to speak more. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. K. Omnan Rao to interact to start our interactive session. Over to Dr. Rao.
Namaskar everybody, very good lecture sir, really a lot of things to learn, and well, I am not synopsizing 2 to 3 things which I have learned. I want to just get myself corrected whether I am going on right or not. So as you started, you said that going for war is easy, but establishing peace is difficult. This is one learning that I had. The second is, you said that war is it's not something that necessarily involves a bloodshed. It is a clash, it is a conflict. So making a reference to the yugas, you have tried to show how the definition of war has changed over the period of time. So coming to the Kali Yuga, you have tried to show the greatest war is the war within our own self, the conflict between the mind and the buddhi, the intellect. So that is the greatest conflict that we have in the Kali Yuga, in the present modern world. And you said, and I could try to say that every moment of life today is a warlike situation because we are always in a sort of crisis, in a dilemma. The mind is saying one thing, our buddhi is saying one thing. So it's the greatest war within ourselves. So this is the greatest learning that I had. The third learning that I could have from you is the Indian strategy. Very nicely you have said that Indian strategy over a period of time has not changed. You making a reference to the Bhagavad Gita, you said that the Pandavas were very much sure that we have a great backing. We have Krishna. So today too, the Indian diplomacy has not changed. India is never going for war. It always creates an element of fear in the world, a situation where we maintain a sort of diplomacy, we create situation where we always say to the world, we have at our back great powers. We have no conflict with any great power. So that is another diplomacy which we have tried to create, and this is, I think, it's something, a strategy that we have since the ages. Now, again, making a reference to Bhishma Pitama, you said that, well, he may be in a government, when you even made a reference to yourself, whether you are in with the government, whether you like that government or not, but since you are an advisor, you have to be a part of it, you cannot dissociate from that. So, the best possible thing that you can do, you have got to do. So was Bhishma, and so the strategy even today sustains. So, finally coming to a point where we belong to a land where we are never prepared for war. We don't want war. We rather say we are the people where say non-violence, taking a reference to yamas and niyamas. We say that the sense of non-violence is something. It is taught. It is something which is original to our Indian thought culture. So the principle of non-violence we could see in Gandhi, and even today, we are people with are more peace-loving than going for war. So that is the strategy that has prevailed over the years. So this is a great learning that I could have from you, sir. 3-4 points. Excellent, sir, and really a great learning for all of us. Well, to start the discussion, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. To start the discussion, let me take a question from the chat box, then we can move to individual, say, who you want to speak on this. Well, it's a question by Rudra C. Says, you see, as long as somebody is exploited and he says, well, I'm being exploited, well, you exploit, there is no issue, then there is no war. But once there is a resistance to exploitation, a warlike situation or war comes up. How do you see this, sir? So exploitation, as long as you say you bear that exploitation, there is no war, there is no conflict. But once you resist, there is a conflict, there is a war. How do you see this, sir? Well, this is one, and
yeah, let me respond to that. See, these days one of the most discussed topic is sustainable development goals. And most of my lectures where I speak about sustainable development goals, I keep mentioning development means there is an exploitation. No development happens without exploitation. Though we say inclusive, there is nothing called inclusive. You can see what is happening is the world is going to be separating people who are rich and the poor, connected and non-connected, educated and non-educated. That separation is increasing every day. Otherwise, why United Nations have to, under the UNDP we had a development program? Why in 2015 we created SDG? If you look at it, there is nothing different. If we say education is to be given, why after 40 years we have to say quality education is to be given? That is because for some people only quality was given, some people quality is not given. And do you think that is going to get established? I am 100% sure nothing is going to change. Because this year 2022 people are discussing about a policy which is 7 years old, which has only 8 years to expire. And why people are discussing? Because Professor COVID gave us the webinar program and then everybody wanted to engage in something. Therefore, every person who is not even educated will start talking about SDG now. This is what has become a fashion. That's it, nothing else. I don't think government people are discussing this that seriously as the NGOs and volunteers are discussing today on SDGs. Right? So this is what the problem is. The problem is exploitation is not a word which is by United Nations, by countries, but every individual person is taking advantage of how I can exploit even the situations where I need. There are only three things which people monk for. One is knowledge. If you are looking for knowledge and discussing, wonderful, very good. I am a learner, I am a teacher, wonderful. That is, some purpose is served. The second one is fame. People create only discussions for fame. And another one is for money. Money or power or position, everything is related to Kshatriya Swabhava. If that is your requirement, maybe you create some discussions and then say we are into this NGO and therefore we need some funding. We are creating somebody to help somebody else. So therefore we want to collect some fund. There could be many reasons behind it. So exploitation is part of development programs. And development is not there, the world is not progressing. So we need to understand the inclusiveness, probably little more better and better is what is expected to be understood. I most of my SDG programs also I recommended two movies to be seen. One is Cowspiracy and the another one is Seaspiracy. If you look at it, Seaspiracy, the movie maker is going to United Nations department which is supposed to take care of few things and ask them why this is not included in your agenda. Then they say no, we don't have committee for this. That's it. Because their portfolios are centralized and very the hosts look. They don't see the 360-degree problems. They only look at I am a servant of this compartment, so I will only do this. I am not worried about what is happening in the other compartment. This is what is happening. So inclusiveness is not there. Inclusiveness is not there. Therefore, it's part of exploit. I make clean India, but where I am cleaning some place in the public place, I am dumping everything in neighbor's place. Right? So that shouldn't happen. So I must also see that where is it, you cannot clean a place unless you dump all these dustbin into the right place with a recycling process. That is essential. Exploitation is part of development unless you take care of it to the extreme end. We cannot avoid it, but we can take care of it. I am sure Kishore Chandra ji can mention or maybe can give much better explanation than what I am giving. There may be many more people here. Not necessarily the question should be to me and then I am only the person who is answering. Not required. I think anyone could raise a hand and then say that yes, I can answer.
Thank you, sir. We'll go for it. Sir, we have with us Jayanti Sahu madam and Suchitra. But before that, let us take a question from the chat box. Then we'll go for people to directly interact. As you said that the greatest crisis today is the conflict between within our own self. Okay. So how do you see this conflict and what could be the way to come out of this conflict, sir? It's a question by Sravani Mr.
Yeah, that is why I said we need to have. We are not conscious about what we are eating. Therefore, our food itself creates a lot of problem within us. There is a great science called you are what you eat. Your rajasic nature is coming because you are not eating what as a person you are supposed to eat. Therefore, what will happen? Anger becomes part of yours. You are not eating food as per the climatic conditions around you. Environmental Panchabhuta is not taken care of in your food. Therefore, we become violent. The other day, 2 days back, we had a great festival here. There is no point in talking in webinar. You have to create. We had 300 people tasted what is that food which we need to take during summer. What drinks we have to take. And what is from the nature which is cooling us. If you don't take care of such things and propagate such messages, that's why I said conscious eating. Consciously thinking about emotional control. Not emotional control. Conscious about your emotions. Let it go in the way it is to be gone. Then intellectually understand the things what is to be understood in the right style. So balancing physical, emotional, intellectual and how you can live in the society as a human being, as a social being. That is social. How do you get into this? See, I don't think no person in this world would have become greater and better without a proper mentor. And today's our mentoring system has become who markets more, he is being considered as the greatest guru. So we have only 3-4 great gurus in India. Rest of the people are all useless because you don't have that many number of WhatsApp messages coming to each one of us. Right? People don't even read. It is not the mentors, the gurus, the acharyas are supposed to be approachable to you and then have a dialogue with you. If that is not there, I think we have a lot of problems. So understand everyone's constitution. Otherwise, we can also give medicines. No, if you have fever, take this medicine. Every day you can send messages. Every problem in this world can be solved by cancer. These are all the prescriptions required. Nobody need to go do a pathology. See, the social problems have to be understood pathologically. Emotional problems have to be understood pathologically. Diagnosis is must. So what is lacking in India today is a proper diagnosis. Without a diagnosis, we start giving prescriptions. That is why I keep saying, unless the pulse is tested, medicine should not be prescribed. Similarly, unless we dialogue each other, we cannot give suggestions and we cannot give advices. So spiritual growth is not what can be seen as today we are. That is why, though India has the greatest power in happiness index, in the growth index, we are the poorest, much worse than the countries who are nearby, who are much worse in social systems. That is because we are mostly connected to an internet, and that is what is doing today. I think the physical structure should come out. That is what being conscious, that is the answer for this.
Thank you, Dr. TPS. Well, he has suggested that right balance between the physical, mental, moral, and spiritual is a solution to this. Well, we have with us Jayanti Sahu, madam. Well, welcome, madam. You wanted to say something?
Good evening,
Hello.
sir. Sir, namaskar. Sir, it is, I completely agree with the explanation which you have given regarding Indian perspectives. But I have some, as you can say, observation or maybe a clarification I need regarding certain points. Because as you said, dharma and adharma, and from the standpoint of Bhagavad Gita. So if something is that we have to establish with reference to dharma, then do you think that the war which is going right now, it is justified? So Russian and Ukraine war, or anywhere the war is going on, if we go by Bhagavad Gita's logic, that is my first question. And the second thing is that suppose because there are, from the Indian standpoint, if we go by dharma and the word dharma and the war and the peace, so we have two models are coming. One is Bhagavad Gita's model, and second one is Gandhian model of non-violence, practicing the non-violence. So which one is better when the Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place? Where was the dharma of Bhagavad Gita? And do you think that sometimes the Gandhian principle is better and sometimes the Bhagavad Gita's principle is better? Like, what really we are looking for? Yes, I agree completely, as you said, explanation, ego, desire, many things. But since sometimes it also asks us that whether sometimes I feel that in Jallianwala Bagh massacre or the whatever things have happened in India, so I think that better model is Bhagavad Gita. But sometimes I feel that in order to establish peace in the world, and always Indian philosophy, spiritualism teaches us to establish peace, the Gandhian model is better. But then still I have some confusion and I need a clarification from you. Thank you, sir.
My question is relating to her. Should I present my views on that? But not question on that.
Yeah.
Let me first congratulate you for giving a very nice lecture and very vivid as well. And you have started with a very nice proposition that I am Kshatriya, I will not go away from that. Yuddhe Chapte Palayanam, and that's why you have waged a very nice war on the war itself and to attain the peace. So,
just you have narrated the things that Mahabharata war and what our friend is telling Jayanti ji is very nicely she has observed. In Kshatriya has to fight for that, for the just cause, and it has been said when the Arjuna become very helpless and says Karpanya dosho nihit pahayan prichhami tum dharma sammoha cheta, and thereafter the Krishna has takes him from different way psychologically and emotionally as well, and he gives him often lucration कि हतो व प्राप्त स्वर्ग जीत्वा भोग्य शशि महिमा तस्मादुत्थाय कौन्तेय युद्धाय निश्चय. At the same time he also said, since you are a kshatriya swadharma api chapeksha now vikampitum arhasi. So these are the things that motivated there for fighting a just war for the cause of the establishing of the dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. At the same time, when we come back to Buddha's position, he also says to wage the war and to quell the war, but within itself. Because mind is the fountainhead of all the good and bad actions. Mind is the fountainhead of Yuddha and Buddha. Now question is, how to attain Yuddha, how to win the war, why to win the war, and what do you like, Yuddha or Buddha or war through peace? This is my basic question.
I don't know whether it is a political statement to be made or maybe criticize what has happened or what has not happened. I'll tell you, probably my introduction to Bhagavad Gita is through Mahatma Gandhi only. If I would not have read Mahatma Gandhi's interpretation on Bhagavad Gita, I don't know how many of you have seen that book. I keep it as one of the precious book because Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan stopped publishing it. When I wanted a second copy, when I was in US, they photocopied and then sent it. That's what they have done because they are not even printing it. And that book is Gita, my mother. So Dr. Jayanti has a doubt whether it is Gandhian philosophy or Bhagavad Gita philosophy. I understand both are same. There is no difference at all. And there is a basic difference between Mahabharata where Kauravas and Pandavas fought. They are all relatives from the same palace. The fight was for the prevalence of Dharma. There was a ruling government. There was a people government. Probably Pandavas represent the people who wanted dharmas to be established. Do you know how many Britishers, soldiers would have been in India? And how many Indian soldiers joined or Indians joined as British soldiers to fight against India? See, if Britishers alone would have come here to fight against Indians, I don't think we don't require 1/2 day to kill those Britishers. The biggest cheaters are not Britishers. The biggest cheaters are those Indians who took the uniform of Britishers and fought in India. So I don't blame Britishers at all. They had played a beautiful game in which Indians, that is what is happening in politics also. In every religion also, it is not somebody else who come from outside becomes our enemy. The biggest enemy is inside us, inside here. So don't consider or compare Mahabharata war with what happened in, no, and again I will tell you, no single Britisher, including British soldier, will be dare enough to stand in front of Mahatma Gandhi to shoot him. See, if you think that Mahatma Gandhi is the person who is driving independence war, and why Britishers could have used one bullet to kill him? So it is not that individual matters, it is not that number of people matters, and don't think that India got independence because of non-violence of Mahatma Gandhi. Britishers have got different reasons after the World War. They did not have sufficient money to maintain, and they lost. So they have to go. To maintain India was a very expensive system for them. Whatever they want, they would have taken. That's it. So it was a natural process. So, but here the dharma establishment is not a natural process. There was a big fight and killed all these adharmic things. If at all you wanted to understand what is the psychological aspect, what went inside Mahatma Gandhi, you must read Mahatma Gandhi as a conflictology man. Instinct to physics is Mahatma Gandhi to conflictology. He had a lot of conflict inside. So if you don't have that conflict, we can't understand that conflict. I am sure each one of us are failing because we have not understood that conflict. Because we have not even understood the first step of non-violence within us. We are violent. So if at all Mahatma Gandhi understood, a person who understood non-violence is Mahatma Gandhi, and he reached the first step of yoga system, that's good enough. Why do you need the whole Yoga Shastra up to 6th chapter? People don't have to go. Do you think all the people who read the Bhagavad Gita really understood what is Moksha Sannyasa Yoga? No, I don't think. They have not understood. They only read it. So there is a difference between reading to learning to understanding. You have to understand. And that understanding, basic minimum level is good enough, which Mahatma Gandhi got. If you think that it was two different streams because you did not understood perfectly, that's what I suggest. Okay, so it's not philosophically, we are not, at least Mahatma Gandhi was not different. Because he had a great mentor. Though probably if you respect Mahatma Gandhi, you should respect all those spiritual leaders from whom he got little advices.
Dear Professor TPS,
Yeah.
I am Srinivasan here.
Yes.
With the due apologies, I would like to ask you some sensitive questions perhaps.
Yeah.
Please tell me, how are you? There is some disturbance. Please tell me, how are we going to bring positive peace in India, which is struggling with the various problems state-wise? Take, for instance, we don't have positive peace in Kashmir, whereas we have negative peace. That is thumb ruling under the control of the presence of army. We are living in nuclear age. Even our Prime Minister has deviated from our dharma and stated that India's achievement in possessing nuclear arms is something unexpected and uncalled for statement from a Prime Minister of a country like this. So the days are not far off. We are only talking about the Puranic ethics and Itikasa or Kavya ethics in tackling all situations, whereas we are migrating from century to century. In 21st century, we are going towards nuclear age. I don't know, all these ethics will stand good. And I would like to have your kind opinion on this, sir.
Srinivas ji, whatever your observation is perfectly all right and correct. If at all India is trying to put our head and shoulder up and then say we are great, it is not because we have that power. Probably somebody else who had got a lesser power. It's all comparative, right? We have been losing the strategy, the political will, the political situations are not very good. It was not because of probably the present Prime Minister or the previous Prime Minister. It has been the reason for all these years what has happened around. That is because the neighbors have got their policies which are not acceptable to not even to India. If instead of India, the strategic positions in geographical locations, if some other country would have been in place of India, we would have fought many number of wars, or probably Pakistan will not exist today at all. We would have absorbed that and then put it into part of India. Long back, it would have happened. So, if we are not fighting a war, it is because of the tradition which we had. I don't think that is a good strategy today, because as you said, there is no point in talking about the Purana and the Idihasas and policies. That is why I said, Agradas Chaduro Veda Prushta Jashasaram Danu. It is high time that we have to sort it out. There was once upon a time, even before partition, in 1970 war, our strong defense ministers that time told, give us half day, we will finish them off. We have not done it. That was one of the biggest mistake. Probably the fake relationship with China created with India have created troubles in the Tibet. Otherwise, the whole Nepal, Tibet would have been part of India. We feel pity when we go to Kailash. You can see how many ashrams we had, how many chowdhuries we had, how many resting places we had. Everything has been demolished by the Chinese people. You know, when they have got this Tibetan people, the Dalai Lama's group of people with the dress, when it was seen, I have seen in early 1900s, when I was traveling to Kailash, the Chinese army will hit them if they see the dress color. In their own land in Tibet, they didn't have that freedom. It's all because of the worst policies India had. Because we have left that country to their fate and then left them. We could have taken them as part of India. So, strong political will, a great visionary is what is lacking in India. Probably that needs to be re-established, that needs to be worked out. I am not that desperate that saying that I have no hope. I hope that at least people today, I don't think these sort of discussion would have happened between us in 1970s or 1980s and 1990s. In 2020s, if you are discussing, that means we are slightly moving towards positivity. That is the only hope which I have. And I don't think it is because of political situations. It is because there is a concern which is coming. Today morning also we had a great discussion. Half day I was physically sitting with a bunch of people in Hyderabad. Sociology professor was there. Lot of people from different political situations, media people were there. We were discussing about how this concern can be taken to the children, the next generation, the youth. If the concern is given to the youth, I think India will progress. Because 26 to 30% of youth is what is in India. The most powerful people in this country, in the whole world. If we are not able to transfer this concern to the youth, we are failing. So that is why I still believe a lot of respect to the teachers like Jayanti and all. I keep talking. Whenever I get an opportunity to talk to students, I don't miss the chance. I am ready to travel any part of this country, any nook and corner, and invest my time. I am not saying spending my time. Invest my time to create some concern in children. I go to that extent of going to talk to them. By my volunteership, I am doing it. I pray and then ask all of you to do that. Then we are in the right place. Otherwise, we will lose. We will lose the game. India will not have this Indian situation what we are boasting today. 100% sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your response
Thank you.
and
Thank
for the
you,
hope
sir.
that you have in the Indian youth. Well, Ruchita Vatsal, he wanted to speak something, then we'll go for Ranjit Ghosh, sir, for his observations. Ruchita Vatsal, she wanted to say something. She said she wanted to share the question in the chat box. Well, is there?
Yeah, there is.
Well, yes, is there? Yes.
Sir, Namaskar, Acharya. I should be grateful to your meaningful speech, and you have almost covered all my points. My question was, is it niyat or niti which is responsible for what? And you have almost given the answer, so I think we should move on. If you have lesser time, we can discuss.
Well, Sudhakaranji, something he wants to say. Sudhakaranji. Sudhakaran PN. Want to say something, sir? Well, let's move to Ranjit Ghosh, sir. Let's move to Ranjit Ghosh, sir. Sir, are you there, sir? Ranjit Ghosh, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. Namaskar, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Namaste, DrTPS. There are a lot of disturbances over here. Anyway, may we just reformulate what you have said regarding the Juga Dharmas. And if we start with the Satya Yuga, then which is characterized by peace, tranquility, harmony, and non-violence, all these things. So can we just put this as an end, and all other Yugas which follow, like Tretaya or Dwapara or Kali, all these Yugas, they are having a passage towards that end. That means these are all the means. The war fought in Treta Yuga or in Dwapara Yuga or in Kali Yuga within ourselves, these are all the means for the realization of that aim. This is one thing. And the other thing is regarding Kautilya, you were mentioning, that Kautilya's concept on war, we find many type of strategies. There is a silent war that he is talking about. And also he is talking about Kuta Yuddha. So all these things, we of course Kuta Yuddha we find Asattavahata iti gaja in Mahabharata. So these things are there, but still can we place Kautilya in as Indian ethical point of view? Can we just give credence to Kautilya from the Indian ethical point of view? These are the two questions. Thank you, sir.
Ranjit ji, namaste, and thank you for reminding. If you look at Mahabharata also, you can see we have a Yuddha Niti. Yuddha Niti is entirely different from the social Niti. Number one. So you can see Krishna also played tricks. Correct. I'll tell you, India also played in 1970 when we had a war. We also cheated Pakistan. We did not have missiles. But what he did was the palm trees were cut in the shape of a missile and kept along the border facing to them, saying as if we are going to launch them. So what has happened? The Pakistan people were focusing that. From the other end we went and fought them. So these are all Yuddha Niti. This is part of any fight. Anywhere in the world it happens. I am sure Russia is not fighting a direct war. It is not that Ukraine is able to sustain with Russia with their power. There are a lot of underground things happening. So during the war there are a lot of games which is part of any war it happens. So they are all nitis, because my ultimate aim is to win. Until the war declares, there is a social niti. Once the war declares, it's only winning, nothing else. There is no right and wrong in the war. There is only one right, that is my right. And your right is not my right at all, even if you're right. That is what happens in the opposition and the ruling party today, unfortunately. Understood? As long as they are fighting for political positions, there is no problem. But once they become rulers, the other fellow becomes an opponent. That is why we call them as opposition leader. I don't know why we should call them as opposition leader. We should have called them as a critical leader, no? They can criticize government. I said government should rename the opposition name itself. But still we are following that, because that is how we have been. We need not to become opposition leaders. Where is opposing the government? Why somebody should oppose the government? We can criticize government, right? Criticism is gone. See, the word criticism is nirupanam. Nirupanam means rupam is not, the shape has not come. I am suggesting you a better shape. Please reshape it accordingly. That's what is criticism. But today criticism is a negative comment. Criticism need not be a negative comment. Whenever somebody is asking a question telling that, or maybe I will say, Dr. Jayanti, this is not correct, it means In my point of view, this is what I think you should understand. That's it. So the point of view are different. So it needs to be understood in that way. That's only what I have to add. Exactly what you said is correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the response. Well, one thing comes to mind. If you make a reference to Bhagavad Gita, well, there were certain codes which have to be followed. There was ethics. So, say for example, one warrior has to fight with one person. Nobody has to stab from behind. There are certain codes which were needed to be followed. But even in Bhagavad Gita, we can see that how Ashwatthama tried to kill the Pandavas when they were asleep. Okay, so number one, we can see how Abhimanyu was attacked. Okay, from a number of warriors. So Bhagavad Gita, but still that ethics has failed even in Bhagavad Gita. So this is my I think one of the things that I would like to add. Well, we have it as B. Chandrika madam. She wanted to say something. Well, she was unmuting herself. If she's there, well, Chandrika madam wanted to say something. Chandrika madam, B. Chandrika madam. Well, I don't think she's there. Well, sir, madam. Well, anyway.
Chandrika is
now.
Dr. B. Chandrika is there. You want to unmute B. Chandrika?
Madam, she wanted to say yes.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I don't think that Easterners, that means Indians, have failed in exploring psychology. It is a wrong statement, it seems. We have gone very deep into the Thi, Dhriti, Smriti and Prajna. So it is less trodden path, it seems. We have to dig deep into it. That is my opinion.
I don't know whether I mentioned that India did not go to psychology. I always keep saying India is the first master of psychology and Yoga Vasishtam is the best example. If you are mistaken, it's wrong. And I only said what Western psychology we are copying is not correct. That's what I mentioned. Yeah. I am a psychology student. I have studied Western psychology, but I am a strong Eastern psychology man. More than philosophy, I love psychology, and Yoga Vasishta is my base.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DrTPS. Well, we have with us our admin, Professor Pramod Das. Welcome, sir. Sir, please make your observations on this, sir. Professor Das. Pramod Das, sir.
Namaskar to everybody. I really enjoyed this talk. I shall have a very best compliment to Dr. DrTPS that he resembles Pitama Vismo. He looks like Pitama Vismo. His voice texture and his personality really resembles Pitama Vismo, which was starred by Mukesh Khanna in the Mahabharata serial. Really, I love your personality, Dr. DrTPS. When we are discussing about war ethics from the Indian perspective, every geographical area, geographical boundary has its own culture, own value system. So, if we are discussing about war, there should be a purpose, there should be an intention behind this war. As Dr. DrTPS said, purpose may be related to economics, purpose may be related to power. So when we have such narrow purposes, narrow intentions, the nature and quality of war is something different. But India is different from this. Therefore, India never start war from its own side. This has not happened yet. One thing Indian culture believes, Satyameva Jayate, that means truth must be established. One should be truthful, one should be Satyagrahi, and truth will be established by the means of non-violence. Fortunately, these two concepts are the concepts of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was a strong believer in the concept of truth. Truth is the goal and means is non-violence. Now the question is, it is not a question to DrTPS, it is a question to myself, it is a general question. Is war possible? War means establishment of truth. If that establishment of truth possible by means of non-violence, this is a big question. Answer is yes. And that answer has been yes through the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. When there is a war in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna very beautifully saying to Arjuna that don't fight out of animosity and don't quit out of love. Because you love your relatives, even if they are committing adharma, don't quit war because you love them. Similarly, you don't fight out of animosity, out of anger, out of clothes. So when so this is the ethics of war. That means war will become functional, war will become a state of action, war will become a state of duty only. Therefore it is said that Swadharma Nihadasraya. You may die performing your Swadharma. So here the question. So this type of war ethics can be discussed in the Indian perspective when we shall focus on metaphysical standpoints. Without that understanding, what is the meaning of death, what is the meaning of life, whether soul is killed or not, all these things are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. And each and every Indian, each and every son of this soil has this culture. I may die, but I shall not compromise with truth. I shall never compromise with truth. I may die. I may die in the pursuit of truth. So who is killing whom? This is a dilemma. This is an imagination. This is human speculation. That Arjuna is fearing that my relatives will be killed. Lord Krishna is appearing. You may be killed. You may be killed by them. Why do you apprehend that you are going to kill them? Who will kill whom? Whether at all the soul is killed or not, you don't have that idea. You don't have that metaphysical sense. Because you don't have that vision at all. Because you are a man of this empirical world. So by logic, by language, by scriptures, by slokas, you can't understand this. Therefore, you take this Divya Chakyu for a spark of time and you see the reality. So by that transcendental vision given to Arjuna, Arjuna was able to see the reality. What is the reality? I am simply an instrument. So everything is killed. It is the divine plan, it is the cosmic vision, it is the transcendental vision. So each and every person, though we are living in this empirical world, we should be cultured with the transcendental vision. If we are living in this scientific age, in the age of relativity, but we should have the knowledge of the absolute, knowledge of that eternity, knowledge of that immortality. That is taught in Bhagavad Gita, and India is that country who believes in this truth and non-violence. Truth shall be protected, number one, and that shall be protected by non-violence only, no violence. So each war a violence? Definitely no. War will be called violence if it is fought for a purpose, a very narrow purpose, for economics or for conquering land or for having for power. If there is any purpose other than establishment of dharma, then it is violent. If there is an unethical attack, when Dr. Rao said that there are so many things. If somebody is weaponless, he will not be killed. One cannot be killed by many. And there is a time of war. It is the evening time, and in the evening war will be stopped. There will be no war at night. So there is a beginning time and there is an end time of war. So the number does not matter. Whether Pandavas are 5 or Kauravas are 10, 100, whether here number does not matter because here truth matters. So truth cannot be established in a democratic way. That if the majority is speaking, so a goat can be a dog, or a dog can be a goat. No. Truth is truth. If it is pronounced by a single person, by one person, Satyamaya Jayate, that is the culture of our land. And we believe in that, we live by it. Whatever we believe, we live by that. Therefore, India is the Guru country. Because all great nations are taking the advice from India. There may be some problems for the illiterate person, those who do not have such spiritual knowledge. Such things are there. But generally, we are groomed with that culture. That blood is flowing in our body. That thought is in our mind, in our manners. That discriminative sense is with us. We are spiritually groomed. Therefore, our definition of war is different. The goal of war is the establishment of dharma, and that is the only means through non-violence. I have, DrTPS, I have that book, Mahatma Gandhi, Bhagavad Gita by Mahatma Gandhi. I am doing PhD on Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, I have that book. I have read that book. Very beautifully, Mahatma Gandhi is speaking about fasting. Perhaps in every chapter he has mentioned the role of fasting. That means war means you have to war against your own senses. If your senses are controlled, your enemy is with you. Your anger is your enemy. Violence is within you. If you are unable to fast, then how can you be able to fight against an enemy outside? So fight against your sense organs, fight against your propensities, bad qualities. So very beautifully that is discussed by Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you, sir. I am really obliged, I am really grateful. You are the right person to speak about this topic. My choice is not wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pramod Das, sir. Very nicely said that the greatest enemy is within us, and we need to fight these enemies. Okay. So thank you. Well, Anurima Bhattacharya, you want to say something? Well, Anurima madam, please.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, is there?
Yes. Sir, I would like to agree. I mean, I have heard two comments about you.
Yes.
One person has considered Guruji, and I always consider you my Guruji. And I will consider you a Mahapurush. And this is not an exaggeration, but the voluntary service you are doing for the young generation and for all of us. I really consider you, like it happens very rarely in our lifetime. So I consider myself very grateful and fortunate to hear you again and again, every time I hear you. Now, sir, I will just try to understand when you are saying that the real reason of war is not fighting for the basic needs, but fighting for freedom. You said that just getting conscious of the lack of freedom. Somewhere I'm getting conscious of that I'm not having freedom. So this is the real reason for war. And again, you commented like only this comes out of the egoism. Okay, so egoist person will think of war, or in this way. So is there any connection that when I am considering or when I am getting conscious of the lack of freedom, only because I am an egoist person, that I am getting conscious of this lack of freedom? Is there any connection between the two? This is one question. And the next question, sir, when you are talking of like spiritualism and development, and you yourself said that when there is development, there is exploitation. There is necessarily that there cannot be development without exploitation. I will say that how can you compromise with limiting exploitation to a certain extent and carry on with the development, and then also try to exercise spirituality parallelly. I mean, I consider that if there is development, you cannot stop that, and you cannot control the exploitation, then you can carry on with your development. This is, I mean, I may be wrong that you cannot stop your development and then you cannot stop your exploitation at a certain level, and that definitely moves towards what I understand revolution is, that is any other form of war. If that is any other meaning of war, if you consider like revolution. So how can you consider spirituality a solution to the context of war? Then you admit of development and you admit of also exploitation in the context of this capitalist structure, when we are not having a socialist setup. Is that possible to have spirituality in this particular structure? So this is my second question.
See, if you look at Arunima, if you look at the discussion between Arjuna and Krishna, it's very clear. The Arjuna and Krishna discussion is not to motivate Arjuna for a war. It is to release him from the bondage. I don't say attachment. Most of the translations are using the word attachment, which is wrong. There is a bondage in him which stops him from doing something which is his actual duty. And that bondage is not having freedom. There is nothing wrong. If your bondage is not there, you feel doing what is right for the society, automatically will jump into that. So that bondage is what is getting released by the knowledge given by Krishna with a lot of iterative questions. So if somebody asks me, Bhagavad Gita is written by Krishna, I say no, it is made by Arjuna's questions. So that questions are, because first he said your biggest problem is, earlier also it was meant, Karpanya doshopa hadaswabhava. Because of Karpanya dosha confusion, I am not able to take a decision. Why? Because he doesn't have that knowledge. So what is Bhagavad Gita providing? Knowledge. So knowledge is provided, confusions will go, then your bondage will go, then the freedom will come to act according to what is required for the society. And second question, the development part of it, I told you exploitation is there. So I can give donations to somebody only when I have it. So there is nothing wrong in becoming richer. But once you become rich, you must realize my job is to help others and distribute money. I'll tell you, probably if the 10 richest people in this world decides, the poverty can be abolished in a day. Maybe distribution takes 1 week time. In 1 week, the whole world poverty can be demolished. There is no poverty in the world if 10 richest people decide that they wanted to distribute their money. That's good enough. But why are we not doing? Because they are not spiritually higher. So what is the solution for this balancing? That is spirituality. So it is the spiritual thoughts in each one of us which makes human being much higher and bigger in this world. That is why I keep saying there is nothing wrong in development, but spirituality has to go. That is why we keep saying physical, emotional, intellectual, social. All these are step by step. The highest and the best is spiritual. Once you are spiritual, all the other problems get solved. I'll tell you, the richest people who are contributing, the spiritual people are, because they have little bit of spirituality in them. If that can be made bigger, if spiritual people only decides they don't construct big air-conditioned ashrams, and then no, the biggest problem is India is behind such people who are constructing large sets of, no, they are making their own kingdom. If that can be abolished, I think that can feed to a lot of people in this world. That is what people have to do. They have to serve society. They have to be like a poor person. They don't live like a Raja. If that can be done, I think the India will become, see, the richest people are ready to donate. But they are not donating for the needy. They are donating to the so-called useless spiritual people who are making their kingdoms. That is where the problem is. It has to be directed. Spirituality is not creating empire. Spirituality is not creating politics. Spirituality is not creating temples. Spirituality is giving food for those people who really need. That is what we need. So only those people who have can do that. So nothing wrong in development.
Thank you, Dr. TPS. Well, thank you so much. Well, it's time nearly 8:30. Well, Roma madam, do you want to say something?
Dr. Rao, namaskar.
Namaste, madam.
I can only thank Dr. T.P. Sasikumar for the wonderful insight he has given to us about the Indian ethics and the Indian perspective. But as you know, deep down, these days the worry is greater. It's not international wars. Neither is it the war within. It is the war in between the citizens of our own country. That is the greatest pain, and one feels literally helpless and can only again just bow down and pray with folded hands that better sense prevails, and at least we begin to live in the brotherhood that India, Bharat, right from the beginning, from the inception, has always modeled for the world at large. But thank you. It's always very, very beautiful being with the philosophy family. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you. Well, it's now 8:30. Well, let's move to by thanking Dr. TPS for the beautiful responses that he gave to the wonderful questions so nicely, so beautifully. So, with this, let's move to Dr. Kailash Mahana sir for carrying on the further proceedings and proposing a formal vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Mahana. And also giving his own observations. Over to Dr. Mahana.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Rao, for giving the opportunity to propose vote of thanks. Really, outside, I have said that today is a great session for all of us because we have with us Dr. TPS, our Guruji, and today it's my pride privilege to propose a hearty vote of thanks to all our viewers, those have been connected with us and those have been benefited from Dr. TPS. My thanks and gratitude goes to all the question raisers like Professor Srinivasan, Professor Avinash, Dr. Jayanti, Dr. B. Chandrika, Dr. Ranjit Gosar, Dr. Sujitra, Anurima, and Dr. Roma, our Armenian Professor Pramod Kumar Das, because their questions, their observation, their comment have made us, made our thinking, made our dimension thought more clear. So all our gratitude go to all the question stages. They have made the session meaningful because of their connectivity, because of their questions, and because of their insights. So how to propose vote of thanks to Professor Dr. TPS? Simply, I bow down before Dr. TPS, our Guruji. Today, he has shared his insight, his wisdom, and spiritual experience on what in Indian dimension, Indian perspective. He has strengthened our dimension thought. he has motivated us, he has inspired us, and he has given knowledge in each sentence, in each statement. I don't, then my language fails to offer my gratitude to him. Today, we all have been benefited, and at first, we thought that was a means to good ends, and was said to be an integral part of the God's universe, because sometimes it develops a man's noblest attitude, and war is said to be one of the essential factors of morality. And when DrTPS has given his wisdom, and in Indian perspective, he has motivated us to overcome the conflicts in order to attain the truth. And the Gita perspective of peace and war has strengthened our attitude, has strengthened our knowledge. What is war? What is peace? And how to overcome all kinds of conflicts. This is the clarity. And the clarity, this knowledge, help us to overcome all kinds of conflict, all kinds of the confusion. So today, my gratitude goes to Professor TPS for sharing his great wisdom with all of us. We think and we pray before God to keep him in good health, and in future times he will be associated with us to share his great wisdom with all of us. With this, I also offer my gratitude to Professor Pramod Padas to invite DrTPS to Fellowship family, and he has given a platform to us in order to have a great connectivity with DrTPS, because in an ordinary life, it is not possible to talk with DrTPS, to share our knowledge, our thought with DrTPS. This is a platform where we get the chance to talk with DrTPS, such a towering personality, such a stalwart in our country. So today, my gratitude goes to Professor Pramod Padas. I must thank Dr. A. Omnan Rao for his connectivity, for his carrying on question and answer with all the question raisers, and his connectivity with DrTPS in order to reach at a very beautiful conclusion and observation. He has also given very beautiful observation. Thanks so much, Dr. Rao. And with this, once again, I offer my gratitude to all the peers, all the questions raisers who are with us till the end of the session, and over to Professor Pramod Padas to end the session. Over to Professor Pramod.
Philosophy family also thanks Dr. Paras Mahanas sir for his coordination, and thank you all of them.
Thank you, Philosophy family, for hosting me, for your kindness. Thank you all. Bye.
With this meeting is